Rev up your engines. Now, if you've been following me any length of time, you know I'm not a fan of modern Jeeps whatsoever, but this is an 05 Jeep when they made them correctly. Made in Ohio. These are still made in Ohio. Now, the reason I think this 05 is one of the best ever made is because the combination of what it has. Now, they've always had good sales between 150, 200 something thousand a year, but to me, this is one of the best ones ever made for quite a few reasons. To begin with, check out the back. It's got a spring suspension system on it, as does the front, which he recently rebuilt because it had the death wobble. There's such a difference in ride between the old leaf springs, and when they put those coils on, it would make your head spin. A lot of people say, oh, I've ridden in Jeeps, they ride like garbage, they're bouncing around, the fillings are coming out of my teeth. The coil springs ride a lot better. Now, that said, this isn't a highway vehicle. You can drive them on a highway, but you get at higher speeds. Not the most comfortable thing for riding around. These big old tires are for off-roading. Now, the other reason I think this is one of the best Jeeps ever made is because what's under the hood. Straight 6-cylinder engine. These things can run forever. This baby's got over 200,000 miles on it. Still, the original engine runs fine. Now, people are saying, oh, the straight sixes don't get great gas mileage. Jeeps don't get great gas mileage. That's not what they're for. They're Jeeps. You're not going to get good gas mileage in a four-wheel drive vehicle that's way up in the air, that weighs quite a bit, and is geared for driving around anywhere. It's not geared for highway speeds. These things aren't really made for driving on the highway, although the modern ones are. The modern ones are more of a compromise. Like almost 90% of them sold in the United States are four doors. They're not even two-door Jeeps. They have four doors on them. Classic Jeep. You can take the top off. We're not because it's cold today. You can drop the windshield if you want and go full army. I mean, these things are solid made. The reason I say this is one of the best ones is because, look, it's modern. It doesn't have one of those annoying carburetors. It's got fuel injection. You'll get a little bit better gas mileage, but let's face the facts, these aren't gas mileage machines. And being modern, it's got power brakes and power steering, which is a big deal. Now, they still make the Wranglers in Ohio, but of course, they've gone since Fiat bought them. They kind of went downhill some, and then Stellantis, they went down here, and they started selling those stupid Jeep Renegades that were just rebadged Fiat 500Xs, which were just absolute rubbish. They sold like 145 of them. Nobody wanted them, right? A lot of people got mad. They thought they were getting a Jeep. They found out they were getting a Fiat, which is a completely different thing. But the new ones, even in the United States, they've got V6 engines that have histories of problems. They've had transmission problems, electronic problems. They're not as solid as these. I mean, this baby's got 200-something thousand miles on it, and it's still going perfectly fine. But even today, in Ohio, our real Jeeps, they're just like this. They have a full frame. It is not unibody, it is full frame. And as I said earlier, these modern ones have coil springs on it. They really handle better, they ride better, and a real spare, not a fake spare. People are always buying and selling these things, and the guy he bought it from would only take cash. There's a lot of cash deals going on with these things. My advice is if you are buying one, just make sure it's a real title. Don't hand over your $8,000 in a Sears parking lot like one of my customers did years ago in Houston, only to find out that when he got it, it was a stolen vehicle. There was no title for it. The guy stole it and sold it to him in a Sears parking lot. Now, being in Tennessee, hey, you don't get much rust, so it's in great shape for that. You're going to find, if you're one of the northern people, hey, the salt eats these things up. Fenders will be eaten up, and if it's really bad, even the frame will be eaten up. Now, if the frame isn't eaten up on a northern car, you can still fix them. Believe it or not, I've had people, they'll buy one that the body's shot, they'll just buy a fiberglass body, and they'll put a fiberglass body on top of it, because it is body on frame. You can always fix them if you really want to. You don't want to pay much for a rust bucket, but something like this that's perfectly clean. He's planning on his grandkids, he wants them to take up to high school. His kids have already done that, but now he wants them to keep it going so the grandkids can drive to high school, and that's totally doable. I'm sure we'll still have with gasoline then. I don't think electric cars are going to take over much of anything in the near future. And this is actually a relatively logical one. If you don't want to go fast, you can get a 4-cylinder one. But really, the best engine ever put into these 4-liter straight 6-cylinder engines. They can run forever. They got enough power to get you around, but they're not death machines. I've driven the ones that have the V8s in them, and they're death machines. They just have too much power for a Jeep. They flip over, they go out of control. My grandson had one, scared the heck out of me. It had the death wobble too. So you had this V8 engine with the death wobble going down the back of the road. I was like, whoa, that's it for me, I'm coming back. But these, they have a much better power to weight ratio. You really can't beat one of these older ones. You're not messing with the old-fashioned carburetor. It's fuel injected, it's got power steering, power brakes, so it's convenient, but it's still a real Jeep where you can drop the top, drop the windshield, modify it to your heart's content. And yes, they will get death wobbles, and he had one in the summer. He fixed the front end, and that's all gone now. Anything in them is fixable, and it's not all that expensive if you price around. There's so many of these out here. Now, if you don't do it yourself, you can pay people a small fortune to do it for you, but you can also do it yourself. Or you can be like the guy that had one that he bought, just drove it. He didn't care if everything was smashed in. Then he just got rid of it, but it was still running. 200,000 something miles. Let's put on the big scan tool and see what it says. He said he had 10 fault codes the other day, so doing it, sing it. Read the VIN number, DJ Wrangler, 2005, and we will do a fault scan of it all. Now while we're doing it, the heat works, but he warned me I can smell the sicky sweet. The heater core is leaking. He's going to replace the heater core in a little while. Still putting out heat though. When you look around, you can see the plastic's still in good shape. The seat's still in pretty good shape for a 20-year-old Jeep with 200-something thousand miles. As you can see here, 204,330 miles. Charging, fuel, oil pressure, and water temperature. And it's got the nice 4-wheel drive system. It's mechanical. It's not electronic nonsense. And the transmission, typical Americans, this is a 4-speed automatic. Many guys want the 6-speed manual. They're going off-roading and stuff. Checking's almost done, 81. It's got 3 codes so far. Please turn on the radio. Well, it won't do the radio because he changed the radio, so it's going to do a code for the radio because it doesn't have the factory radio anymore. Got 3 codes. Transmission control module. Battery was disconnected. Torque converter clutch control circuit. Now, they'll often do that. The torque converters get a little bit worn with this kind of mileage. He doesn't have any problems with it running, but they will get a little bit of slippage as stuff ages. A lot of guys won't even notice it when they're driving. You would get a little bit worse gas mileage because the torque converter wouldn't lock up. No big deal on these things. Are you going to pull out a tranny and rebuild it for something like that? Probably not. It runs perfectly fine otherwise. And it says a problem with the mechanical instrument cluster. For giggles, we'll erase these codes. Gone, so now we'll start her up. And we will look at live data. Cold day, so it might take a minute or two. There we go, live data. See what looks good, what looks bad. Oxygen sensor goal for the voltage is 2.7. And the actual one is 3, 3.1, 3.3. That's not bad. Short-term adaptation, 0 is perfect. 2, -0. So it's pretty good for a vehicle with 200-something thousand miles. Shows the battery temperature in Celsius. I'd have to change it to Fahrenheit. I don't bother. Voltage 4.7, 4.5, that's pretty good. It even shows you the burn time of the coil. Got a lot of information on these. Not said the cam crank wasn't synced right, so let's relearn it. You gotta turn the engine off. Now it's revving the engine up, resetting stuff. So let's reset it. Let's look at some more data. And you can see the cam sync is now in sync. The crank sync, it's in sync too. So let's take it for a little spin. Now of course there's no backup camera. It's too old. But you got a lot of windows to see what's going on. And it stopped snowing. Smooth idle for 204,000 miles. Hey, this thing's still idle perfectly fine. Now it's a Jeep, so it's not a race car. You got to do a lot of turning to steer. You just don't go flying down the road and cornering like a maniac. I can see the transmission still shifts smooth. And for a Jeep with 200-something thousand miles, it's relatively quiet. You got to consider, this baby's got extremely aggressive tires on it, and they're not too loud. You're way up in the air, you get to see everything. And with the power steering and the power brakes, it's not that different to driving a car other than you are top heavy. So you don't want to be flying around corners at 80 miles an hour. We'll check the brakes out. Power brakes, they work perfectly fine. You can see that engine's got power to it. Give it some gas. It picks up and goes. You could scare yourself with this thing. Especially if you corner too fast. But the 4s, yeah, they're underpowered. But these 6s, they got plenty of get up and go. You step on the gas, it picks up plenty fine. And he fixed the death wobble. It doesn't have the death wobble anymore. He had to work on the front end. He got himself a nice vehicle for $8,000, even though he had to go to the bank and get cash. Guy only wanted cash. I guess he didn't want to tell the IRS that he was taking money in. So there you have it, a real Jeep made in Ohio with a nice 6-cylinder engine, fuel injected. Automatic transmission for most Americans. 90-something% of Americans only drive automatics. It still shifts like a dream. I gotta say, for what he paid, $8,000, you can find one that isn't rusted. Do look for rust if you're looking at them. But you can have a lot of fun for a little bit of money if you spend some time looking around, because a lot of guys have these as toys, and when they want another toy, they sell the old toy and they get a new toy. So take their toy and use it as your toy, and don't spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on a new toy. Get a used toy instead. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.